Good evening, welcome for this day 2 match of the competition, the Inter-University Law Debate Tournament organized by the Corax Foundation. Today we have two teams who will be moving, of course, in the group phase. They are in Saudi Arabia and in Italy, and I give the floor to my colleague who will be hosting the match.
Thank you very much, and good day, everyone. Good evening to our two participating teams, and of course also to our judges that will be watching this either on record or maybe already are now live, and of course everyone that is supporting the teams. Today's debate is part of day 2 of the group phase, so all debate matches in this phase share the same theme of space governance and commercialization of outer space. The teams from Prince Sultan University and Free University of Languages and Communications of Milan received their debate statement 7 days in advance. Specifically today, they'll be debating on the topic whether or not developing nations should have preferential rights to access and utilize space resources to promote global equity in outer space activities. But as always, before we get to allocation of positions and the match itself, just short introductions by our team members. Starting with Prince Sultan University, Ms. Al Saif, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Dana Sef. I'm a senior law student here in PSU, and I'm a member of the debate club here at PSU.
Thank you and welcome. From IULM University of Milan, Mr. Amatucci.
Hi everyone, I'm Nathan and I'm from Milan. I'm a student of Artificial Intelligence in IULM and I'm part of the debate team in IULM.
Thank you. Welcome back to Prince Sultan University, Mr. Abdu.
Hello everyone, I am Khaled Abdu. I am studying software engineering. I'm just in my first year in this major, and I'm a part of the debate club in our university.
Thank you. Welcome. Passing the floor now to IULM University of Milan, Ms. Lanzoni.
Hello everyone, I'm Giulia Antoni. I'm attending my third year of my bachelor degree in corporate communication and public relations, and I'm part of the debate club and also the president in charge for this year of the debate club of my university.
Thank you. Welcome. Prince Sultan University, completing your 3-member team, Ms. Quiddy.
Hi everyone, my name is Lena. I'm a first-year law student at Prince Sultan University, and I'm also a member of the PSU Debate Club, and I'm really happy to be here.
And welcome, and completing the IULM University of Milan team, Mr. Binaghi.
Hello everyone, I'm Federico Binaghi. I'm the bachelor year of IULM, studying communication, media, and advertising, and I can't wait to start this debate with you.
All right, so I'm not going to be keeping you long then, passing the floor to my colleague who will share the allocation of positions, and of course you will have 5 minutes to finalize your preparations.
Yes, so I will share my screen in a few seconds, and you will see the wheel with the double flags and logo of your institutions. So yes, normally you should see. So as you can see, there is a chance, there are 2 chances, one chance to be in favor and one chance to be against the motion for each institution. So I would like to create the randomizer now, and the team will be in favor, will be starting with the first introduction. So that will be IULM University of Milan, who will be in favor and then will be starting with the first introduction. As a consequence, Prince Sultan University will be against the motion. So it means concretely, IULM University of Milan will defend the position that developing nations should have preferential rights to access and utilize space resources to promote global equity in outer space activities, while Prince Sultan University will defend the position that developing nations should not have preferential rights to access and utilize space resources to promote global equity in outer space activities. So now you'll have 5 minutes to review your notes, and then we'll hear the introduction from the Italian team.
Thank you, everyone. Your time for final preparation is now over. We'll be starting by hearing the opening statements, starting with...
Sorry, Anna, can I ask you a question? After my speech, I have to go because at work they close and I have to leave. Is that a problem?
No, no worries.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So starting with the position in favor, the IULM team, you will now have 4 minutes for your opening statements.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, I'm Giulia, and today I'm here to sustain the position for the preferential rights for developing nations in space resource utilization. The explorations of outer space offer immense opportunities, but access to its resources remain limited to a few technologically advanced and economically powerful nations. This imbalance contradicts the principle of fairness, sustainability, and international cooperation. To promote true global equity, developing nations must be granted preferential rights to access and utilize space resources. This approach aligns with established space laws and ensures a more inclusive future for humanity. Our line is built on 3 points. The first one is the bridging the technological gap and also ensuring fair access. The second one is on preventing monopolies in space resources. And the last is a metaphor with the international waters and the international seas. Starting from the first one, we want to say that developing nations need preferential rights to access space resources to bridge the existing technological and economic gap. The Outer Space Treaty, the OST, of 1976 states that the outer space is the province of all mankind. However, in practice, SX is dominated by a few wealthy nations. In 2022, the global space economy was valued at $469 billion, with the United States contributing 60% of public space funding, and also Europe the 50%. This financial disparity leaves developing nations at a severe disadvantage, limiting their ability to participate in space exploration. The Moon Agreement is an evidence of that reasoning because it further affirms that celestial bodies and resources should be shared equitably. Without preferential policies, and emerging economies will struggle to access these resources, widening the gap between spacefaring and non-spacefaring nations. The second one is the importance of preventing monopolies in space resources. Without regulations, a few powerful nations will monopolize space resources, exacerbating global inequalities. Monopolies have historically led to increased prices, restricted access, and reduced innovation. If monopolies form in space, developing nations will be excluded from essential resources, reinforcing economic disparities on Earth. The Moon Agreement explicitly warns against the appropriation of space resources by individual nations or private entities, advocating for an international framework to distribute benefits fairly. However, many spacefaring nations have not ratified this agreement, leaving room for monopolization. Granting preferential rights to developing nations would prevent monopolies and uphold the principle that space resources should be used for the benefit of whole humankind, not just the wealthiest nation. The third one is the legal framework for space resources should mirror international agreements on shared global resources, such as the high seas. The high seas, much like outer space, do not belong to any single nation. They are governed by international laws to prevent overexploitation and ensure equitable resource distribution. The United National Convention of Law of the Sea mandates that marine resources in the international waters be managed for the collective benefits of humanity, and this will be said in the next speech. Guaranteeing preferential rights to developing nations in space resources utilization is essential for achieving global equity and preventing resource monopolization. The Outer Space Treaty and the Moon Agreement provide the legal framework to ensure outer space remain accessible to all, just as international waters are governed for the benefit of humanity. If we do not take action now, space will become a domain of inequality. So we sustain the motion saying that developing nations should have preferential rights to access and utilize space resources to promote global equity in the outer space activities. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear the opening statements for the against position. Prince Sultan University, you have 4 minutes.
Honorable judges, esteemed opponents, and distinguished audience, while we agree that space should benefit all humankind, creating a preferential system is neither practical nor legally justified. Instead, space should remain free and open to all, as is guaranteed by international law. This is why we, the opposition, believe that developing nations should not have preferential rights to access and utilize space resources. This is for several reasons. First, the concept of common heritage of mankind does not have legal basis in space law. Second, it's a violation of the freedom of use principle. And third, there's an actual lack of practical implementation. First, one of the goals underlying the principle of common heritage of mankind is to allocate benefits of resources among nations, which could be argued as justification enough to share space resources equitably. However, this concept must also be accompanied by a treaty or customary international law to actually be applied, both of which don't exist when it comes to space law and space resources, meaning states have no obligations to actually apply equity or any such principle. This is further supported by the North Sea Continental Shelf case of 1969, where the ICJ ruled that the principle of equitable access must be based on state consent and not imposed unilaterally, since it was not based on customary international law. Second, it's a violation of the freedom of use principle. The Outer Space Treaty, which has governed activities in space since 1967, has Article 1 of that treaty states that the exploration and use of outer space shall be carried out for the benefit and interest of all countries, irrespective of their degree of economic and scientific development, and shall be the province of all mankind. Article 1 also specifies that access to outer space shall be open to all states, and that the exploration and use of outer space shall be conducted in accordance with international law. Article 2 of that treaty applies the principle of non-appropriation. Outer space is not subject to national appropriation by claims of sovereignty, by use or occupation, or by any other such means. Both the principle of space and the province of all of mankind and the non-appropriation principle are relevant to the issue of preferential treatment. If no one country may lay claim to any portion of outer space, it follows that a country should not be able to declare that they have priority or primary right to any space resources. Third, there's a lack of practical implementation. Unlike the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, which has enforcement mechanisms such as International Seabed Authority, space law lacks a regulatory body capable of implementing a preferential system. Developing nations might even have the infrastructure to utilize their preferential rights effectively, leading to inefficiencies, slowing down progress, and preventing any nation, developing or developed, from even benefiting from space resources. Not only that, any mechanism put in place could discourage developed nations from participating. This happened with the US, never ratifying the UN CLOS, partly due to the concerns over the ICA's regulatory framework. American policymakers, particularly conservatives, had concerns over the ICA creating bureaucratic inefficiencies and placing undue burden on private enterprises and looking to exploit seabed resources. In conclusion, while we recognize inclusivity in space activities, imposing preferential rights is not the solution. It contradicts established legal principles, discourages investment, and fails to address real barriers in space access. Instead of creating an inefficient system of preferential rights, we should focus on cooperation and technological capacity building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This marks the end of opening statements. We'll now proceed with the first rebuttal. IULM, you have 2 minutes for your first rebuttal.
Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Okay. States are not. Opposition is saying that space resources are open to all, but that's not fair. It's not open when, as a state, you don't have actually the potential to use this type of resources. And in the history of all the resources that are precious and essential on Earth, there's a logical and there are principles applied today. For example, in the 1997 UN Water Courses Convention applied the principle of equity and reasonable use ensures that transboundary water resources are shared and special consideration for developing nations. Establish that developing nations that need this type of resources have preferential right. On the other hand, WTO, the World Trade Organization, for example, generalized system of preferences, GSP. This is a provide lower trade to nations that are actually less developed. This is for saying as proposition that we need actually we need to not okay. As of a proposition, we are saying that we don't have to feed the status quo, but actually to replace it with a new collaboration system that can empower new countries and developing countries to access to this type of resources. The logic behind these policies, of course, is clear. In the history, the most powerful nations monopolize this type of resources, essential resources for the states. And we can't let this happen again. Actually, without equitable policies, emerging nations will once again be left behind, unable to participate in the economics and scientific advancement of this new frontier. Thank you.
Thank you. For the first rebuttal for the against position, Prince Sultan University, you have 2 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
You are.
Okay, thank you. My speech starts in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, while the proposition paints a compelling picture of fairness and equity in space, their argument is built on idealistic assumptions rather than legal and practical realities. The proposition mentioned bridging the technological gap. They mentioned the principle of all mankind. They mentioned the Moon Agreement and the law of the seas. I would first like to start by rebutting the Moon Agreement. The Moon Agreement is not ratified by the Moon Agreement that supports the common heritage of mankind has only been ratified by a handful of nations and none of the major spacefaring powers. Customary international law, on the other hand, gives more weight to widely accepted treaties, such as the OST, rather than under-ratified agreements. No major spacefaring nation recognizes the Moon Agreement as binding international law, which means we cannot trust it or we cannot have faith in it and apply its principles if the nations that have all the power in space don't actually follow it. Secondly, the proposition mentioned bridging the technological gap, but there is an issue in this as space law primarily regulates states and not economic systems, making the enforcement of preferential rights very complex. The Outer Space Treaty in Article 6 requires states to authorize and supervise all non-governmental activities, making preferential rights harder to implement. For example, the International Seabed Authority's model has been criticized for inefficiency and slow development. As for preventing monopolization, we believe that allowing preferential rights for developing nations can actually lead to more monopolization due to the legal and practical ambiguity with the term developing nation, as there is no universally accepted definition of a developing nation. China calls itself a developing nation despite having the world's second largest economy. So can we really give them preferential rights? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear the second rebuttal for the in favor position. IULM team, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, can you hear me? All right. So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. So the opposition team has pushed the idea that, especially in the second speech, that the Moon Agreement is ratified by minor countries. Well, that's exactly the point. But follow me for a moment. Just let me ask you why only minor countries, the countries that didn't make it to the big four of the space exploration, ratified this agreement. That's the point. They need it. Otherwise, only rich countries will thrive in the space race, in the space economy. We are trying to push for a world that is truly equal, that encompasses both less developed and more developed countries in space. The status quo, which we agree with, the opposition team actually has in the first speech delineated a very clear state of the status quo. Yeah, we agree with the status quo explanation that the opposition team said. However, we do not agree at the fact that something else could not happen. We agree that what has been said is right, but the opposition team really didn't clarify why an alternative should be possible. Like they stated what's the present, but they did not state at all as why we couldn't build a better world. And we believe that we could build a better world by improving the like the developing countries' condition in space exploration by treating them diversely. Because as we know, equity is not equality. We need to improve the condition of those who are economically impaired. We cannot just say that all countries are equal and that they should stand by themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now passing the floor to Prince Sultan University for your second rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you to the proposition for their points. I would like to start by saying we cannot, even though the big spacefaring nations have not ratified the Moon Agreement, that is the main reason we cannot force them to do anything and force them to give preferential rights to the developing nations. State sovereignty still exists, and it is an internationally recognized concept. Second of all, even if we were to go by the common heritage of mankind principle, this principle promotes shared access and not preferential treatment. It makes it inconsistent with giving developing nations priority over space resources, because it highlights that it is the province of all mankind, meaning no country, developed or developing, should have exclusive claims. So the province of mankind treatment that was mentioned in the Moon Agreement actually promotes shared access and not preferential treatment. It actually argues against preferential treatment. So past common heritage of all mankind-based systems like the UNCLOS have faced bureaucratic efficiencies, discouraging investment and innovation. So instead of preferential rights, a more practical approach would be international cooperation and capacity building to ensure that all nations can develop space capabilities without distorting free access principles. Additionally, the proposition mentioned a point from the World Trade Organization already providing preferential treatment to developing countries. The WTO governs trade, not space resources. It regulates the exchange of goods and services between nations and not the allocation of unclaimed extraterrestrial resources. Space is governed by a separate legal framework, and we cannot apply the WTO's frameworks to space, as trade and space are nowhere near the same thing. Space resource extraction is not yet a commercial trade system where we can apply the same type of laws. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear the concluding statements, starting with the team in favor. IULM, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. So this debate has been all about the status quo and the fact that if we could build a better world. The proposition team, my team, said that from the start that a better world is possible. It is not a world of based on economics and favors, but a world based on equality. A world where every country has the rights and the means to venture into the space economic. But the opposition team did underline the fact that the status quo currently does not support an infrastructure that will sustain our claims. Then we rebutted that, in fact, such an infrastructure will be easily buildable in this current world, and the fact that we actually have plans and it is possible and feasible to make to better the conditions of less developed parts of the world and countries. Moreover, the opposition team continued by comforting the Moon Agreement and the fact that it was ratified, but we also said that it was just the point. And because of that, the Moon Agreement was signed only by the nations who couldn't have the means to go to space. In the last speech of the opposition team, they have said that the international cooperation will be a better solution. But we truly disagree, because by international cooperation actually comes with making the interest of big nations. You will not be able to convince me that you truly believe that big countries will actually willingly make sacrifices and investments just for the sake of good heart. They will make investments and want even something bigger in return, just as it always is. Thank you very much. And it's because of this that I support my team.
Thank you for your submission. We'll now hear the concluding statements for the against position. Prince Sultan University, you have 2 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
You are.
Okay, honorable judges, esteemed opponents, and distinguished audience. The proposition argues that preferential rights will create fairness, but in reality, it does the exact opposite. Giving special treatment to some nations that does not level the playing field. It builds limitations for the progress for everyone. First, let's speak about the preferential rights. It does not guarantee equality. Instead of allowing fair competition, they create a system where some nations are prioritized based on their situation rather than their contributions. Developing nations do not need this shortcut. They need real opportunities and access to technology, investments, and partnerships. This allows them to grow on their own. Second, when we talk about history, history proves that these systems fail. The law of sea was meant to protect developing nations, but now what's happening? Wealthier countries are still dominating deep sea mining. If preferential rights didn't work on Earth, why should they work on space? Instead of helping, this approach will only create corruption and more inequality. Third, space should be open to everyone based on merit, not entitlement. Exploration and innovation should not be restricted by artificial rules. If we truly want a fair system, we should focus on cooperation, technology sharing, and inclusive policies, not favoritism. Let me state it clear. The truth is, you cannot reach the stars, and at the same time, you're pulling the others down. Progress should be about effort, knowledge, and collaboration. For these reasons, we must reject preferential rights and ensure space remains an opportunity and a place of opportunities for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your submissions. You can all relax. You are no longer graded after this part. So on the side of organizing team, congratulations for completing your day 2 match. As always, judges, be that they're watching right now or will be watching after, they will have 2 business days to review your debates and submit their scorecards. Once we do have that confirmation, we'll share the results with you, of course, and then announce it through the channels, LinkedIn and Facebook. But already now we have a bit of opportunity for some feedback in regards to the debate progress today. So I would like to pass the floor to you as the participants to have short reflection on how the preparation and the match progressed. Starting with the Prince Sultan University, Ms. Al Saif, how did you find the topic and the preparation for your team?
I found the topic in preparation quite interesting. Us at PSU, we don't really have a lot of or any courses that deal with space law, so this was really a new thing for me specifically. Like I've taken all the classes. I'm in my last semester. I'm going to be my internships next year, so this was really a good opportunity to learn more about an area of law that I wasn't familiar with. So it was intriguing and it was fun, really.
Well, thank you for sharing. The same question to IULM team. Ms. Lansoni, how was it for your team?
We found it very specific and also very interesting because of being very specific, and we had no knowledges about space law at all, so we struggled with the preparation at the first time, but then we found many lines to implement and to search regarding that theme, and so it was really interesting, also the topic and also the debate today, because we also listened to the other part and we managed to struggle with that. So it was really interesting also in the preparation, and the same with the debate today.
Well, thank you for sharing. Ms. Kudli, how was it for your team and for you? Did you already develop from the first debate certain maybe review of other debates prior to yours? Did you look at the tactics of your opposition today, or did you already perhaps develop your own team for some preparation on the pro and against preparation of statements?
Yeah, I mean, like the others said, I think it was a really new topic. It was an area of international law that I had never before, so I was definitely learning a lot of things that seemed very well known within like space law and international space law specifically. And Saudi Arabia is working a lot in this area right now, and like developing their space knowledge. So it was really interesting to read about. I think our team mostly focused on preparing and building on what we had done the last round. So what we did wrong the last round, we tried to fix it this round. And yeah, honestly, I think we were well prepared, and I think it was a really interesting topic.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Mr. Binagi, how was it for your team? Did you already have a rhythm for when it comes to preparation for the for and against research? And did you perhaps already look at the videos?
So I actually was really interested in this topic, but I never really dig into like the actual specifics of this. Like I always wonder why how was space was regulated, but I never actually researched it. So it was really interesting to like search information with this, for this.
Right, thank you for sharing. Mr. Abdu, how was it for you, the topic, the research, and did you perhaps hear some familiar arguments from the Italian team during the debate?
Well, it's actually a new experience for, I think, both of the teams and the people that are debating here. The thing is that it's a new experience to talk about the space and the developing nations and how are they going to use these rights to access the space resources and etc. The thing is that, yeah, I'm 100 sure that, or I was 100 sure percent that we're going to hear the same thing about the outer space agreement or the agreements that are always mentioned, something like that. It was fun looking into these agreements and also searching about the treaties itself. And yeah, as a conclusion, it was fun having this debate, and let the best team win, inshallah.
Great. Okay, and then one more question before we get to a bit of cultural exchange aspect that you might have between the two teams. And that would be, it's now your day to match. You've familiarized yourself with some principles of international law, some concepts. Is there perhaps a particular one that stayed with you from this debate or prior debate in regards to research, be that common human heritage or equity or certain other aspects? Perhaps starting with the Prince Sultan University, is there a concept of international law that you particularly enjoyed learning about or trying to put into practice during debates?
For me, I would say state sovereignty is something that I've seen like reoccurring in multiple debates that we've had. So that I feel is a pretty important aspect of international law.
Yeah. Also, the Moon Agreement was really interesting. I didn't know that there was like a law that said that the moon was just common, a heritage of all mankind. Like I didn't think that it had to be written down, but it was interesting to read that there was an entire like agreement all about how the moon should just be like everyone's property. So it was really interesting to read about.
Mr. Abdu?
For me, actually, I learned that, or as I think each debate will focus mainly on one thing or on one treatment or something like this, and then we talk a lot about it. Like in the previous one, we focused on Paris Agreement, and this one we focused about the Outer Space Agreement. Let's see what's coming next in the next one.
Indeed, you have few days before we announce the day 3 round, day 3 debate statement. But in the meanwhile, also the same question for the IULM team. Is there a concept of international law that you particularly enjoyed learning more or trying to put in practice?
Like we saw recurring the theme of sustainability and the relationship between the effects of sustainability and the climate change, and always related to the climate effect, and also the agreements on that. So also in the last debate we mentioned talking about customer international law for public health and also for the environment. We deep down in that field, and we also think that it will be even more and more important, principally in that time and in these years. So it's also related to the Paris Agreement and also the Stockholm Declaration, the Rio Summit, so that things especially.
Right. Mr. Pinnock, if you have anything to add?
No, I think my colleague really said everything that was to say. I was really happy to debate with you. It was, I think, a really nice debate. And yeah, just as your teammate said, may the best win. But with the knowledge that we all enjoyed our debate.
Right. Well, right. Final question in regards to possibility to exchange some experiences between the two of your teams. We talked a bit before the debate started, before we went live, in regards to the spring weather coming up. So just a quick question. Should the other team come and visit your campus or your city, what would be the place you would take them to see or experience? Should they arrive? Of course, we have final week planned for The Hague, but those are the Dutch experiences for June. What about spring experiences either in Riyadh or in Milan? Perhaps starting with the PSU team?
Well, in our university, there is a special room actually. If they are coming to visit us, the thing is that I'm going to take them to 108. 108 actually is the room that we actually built the debate club itself. We won our competitions there, and we did everything there, starting from the point zero until until we are in this position. So it's not that fancy place. It's just a study room, or it's just a class, a study class. But the thing is that we value this room more than anything, I think, in Riyadh or even in the country.
Right. What about your team members?
So we, if all right. So, sorry.
Let's just give the floor to Ms. Al Saif and Ms. Kurdi still. If there's anything you would like to share with the Milan team in regards to Riyadh.
I was gonna say, I mean, Dana, do you want to go? I'll go after you.
Yeah, you go first. You go first.
I was just gonna say, okay, obviously we all value 108 a lot. Like Khalid said, that's where we built our skills for this debate. But somewhere more cultural, I'd probably take them to it's the west area of Riyadh. It's called Al Bijari, and it's a very historical area. It's an old area. It's where Riyadh originally started from. So Riyadh originally was just that area, which is called Diriyah. And it's just a beautiful area with lots of museums and old cultural sites. So I think I would take them there. And there's a lot of good places to eat also. So yeah.
Since Lena mentioned the cultural and historical area, I'll mention the touristy area. I'd probably take you guys to Boulevard Road. It's a giant area where they do like mini hubs of countries, and they just bring in like the food of those countries. They do performances of like the cultural dances of those countries. So it's a very touristy area. So I think at that point we have everywhere covered in Saudi. So I think that's good.
All right, then Milan team, now you have the option. Brigade students are coming to visit you. What is the place or experience?
So actually, our campus has a lot of different activities. If we want like to really visit our university, there's like a radio station that we have. There's like you can eat really well in the in the canteen. I think, yeah, Mensa. Okay, in the canteen. It's really good food. I did not expect the food to be so good. But if you really want to visit Milan, Duomo, for real. Duomo is like one of the biggest churches in Italy. It's like mesmerizing. You have to visit it. But aside of that, it's really in the center of Milan, the heart of Milan. Aside of that, there's really, you can really go everywhere. Like you can go in Navigli, which is like Venice, but in Milan. Like it has big streams of water and a lot of places where you can drink beer or eat or do like buy something. There are vintage shops. It's really cool.
Miss Lansani?
My favorite district in Milan is Brera. That is a district full of museums and also architecture, places, streets, and it's really historical and cultural, has a really historical and cultural background that worth it to visit. So this is my art place in Milan, and I think it should be the same for everyone who visits that. So I would definitely take you there.
Right. So maybe a spring exchange might be in the cards this year or next year. You can always find each other on the post that we have tagged you on LinkedIn during the team announcements and the debates, the link to this match announcement as well. And of course, during the results. If you also want to exchange email addresses, do not hesitate to let us know. We can share it with you as well if the two teams agree. And yeah, in 2 weeks, you will have your final debate in the group phase. So the day 3 match will take place in about 2 weeks for you. You will meet the team that you haven't had yet the chance to meet during the day 1 and this day. And afterwards, just shortly before the announcement of the results for the elimination stage, we'll have another specific and group-wide for everyone in the competition networking event, which will take place in April during the mid-edition break. And once again, congratulations to both of your teams. I'll be passing the floor now to my colleague to close the session. Good job.
Yes, it was a great session, and I really enjoyed actually listening to both teams discussing on that aspect of space law. For this match, of course, it was a different theme from the first match. For the third match, it will be again a different area of law, and you will be, of course, meeting the very last team you did not meet yet. So I believe very quickly that you will be having a match Prince Sultan University against the team from Costa Rica, and on the side of the Italian team, you will meet the Brazilian team, and that will be, of course, in the second part of March. So in the meanwhile, we'll receive the grading rubrics from the free judge, and you will, of course, receive them as soon as we get them. And I hope as well it is an opportunity, because you are 2 debate clubs, so it's an opportunity maybe to connect between the 2 debate clubs, to invite each other, to have some guest speakers, and of course you can find yourself on LinkedIn. So if it happens that you come to Italy, it happens that you come to Saudi Arabia, that's as well a good way to have already someone who can show you that particular room in your building and that particular canteen in the other building. So voilà, so it's a good connection. So we hope that you enjoyed that match, and of course we keep in touch for the day 3. Many thanks, greetings, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, well done.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye.